Hello and welcome to the Sustainability Skill Set Podcast, a show where we explore careers in sustainability and the skills to help you succeed. I'm glad you're here. If you are passionate about sustainability and hungry to learn, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Luis Damaso, a sustainability consultant and young sustainability professional learning right along with you. Today's guest is Carlos Villalpando, a technology leader, sustainability advocate, and enterprise architect who's helping some of the world's biggest companies make sense of their carbon data. Carlos is a director at Salesforce, where he works on the Net Zero Cloud team, guiding organizations on their path to credible climate action through better data, smarter systems, and long-term strategy. His journey into sustainability wasn't planned. With a background in IT and customer success, Carlos spent years leading tech teams, mentoring architects, and building enterprise solutions across higher education and philanthropy. But after an internal realignment at Salesforce brought him onto the Net Zero Cloud team, he discovered a new purpose. Carlos stayed on that team, and he's been learning, building, and advocating ever since. Not just for better sustainability software, but for better collaboration between sustainability and tech teams. In this episode, we explore what it means to be an enterprise architect in the world of sustainability, why Scope 3 emissions are so hard to tackle, and how sustainability professionals can level up their data strategy to unlock real impact, not just reporting. Carlos also shares how his background in IT helps him bridge the gap between business goals and sustainability needs, and why the best sustainability work often starts with asking the right questions. Whether you're working on sustainability, data, or somewhere in between, this episode is packed with insights on how to build smarter systems and stronger careers. Let's dive in. Carlos, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Could you start by giving us just a quick background of your role and what you do with Salesforce?
Sure. I'll even start by giving you my full name and then my go-by name here in the US. But my whole legal name is Jose Carlos Alberto Villalpando Lizárraga. But when I moved here 25 years ago, it didn't go that well, so I became Carlos Villalpando. But I have been working at Salesforce for a little bit over 8 years. And for the last 3, I've been working with the Net Zero Cloud product. In different roles around it, right? It was a little bit more, the product chose me than I chose the product. I had spent a good chunk of my career before doing nonprofit, doing education. Even earlier, before I joined Salesforce, we did a little bit of everything as a Salesforce consultant. And through some internal realignment and changes, we end up with Net Zero Cloud. And at the time, I knew the word sustainability. I knew that we had to do things to keep the planet in some sort of shape. I sometimes tell that both my boys are tree huggers by nature, not by nurture, right? It's not that my wife and I taught them. I think that maybe the education system, maybe the how everything else is different. They knew more about sustainability than I did. So when I joined the team, it was a very interesting time to ramp up. And had nothing to do with the tech. I've been in tech for 25 years. Mm-hmm. But the most interesting for me has been that this last 3 years, just trying, and I keep saying trying to learn the domain has been extremely challenging. Now, I still haven't answered your question on what's what I do here. Recently, I joined the product team as my official title as industry advisor. But mainly, I think that if you know what an enterprise architect does, it's a little bit of a combination of that, a little bit combination of as I joke sometimes, carbon accounting on TV, in a little bit of long-term strategy on go-to-market and things like that. So my role is a little bit of amorphous. Some days are talking to customers and partners and what are the challenges of adopting a product. At the end of the day, we work in a subscription-based company, and if we don't have our customers and partners happy, they will not renew their subscription. So, right. So my job is to make sure that, I guess, to encapsulate it and answer in a 30-second, my job is to make sure that people are using the product and they're getting value out of their investment. What entails that? Well, we'll probably go into some of those areas, right?
Yeah, that's a super helpful introduction. It sounds like your kids may have been the reason that you got into sustainability.
Mm, More than that, I got into it. The reason that I probably stay into it,
Yeah.
right? I think that maybe thinking on a parallel universe, if I would have been with no kids, maybe I would have tried to when I got moving to the product because of the return on alignment that happened at the time, maybe I would have switched. But once that I got into the product and I started talking to them, and you will see their interest to say, "Oh, my dad works in sustainability."
Mm.
Kind of one thing led to the other, and it still allows me some days to be able to be in a cocktail party, the mythical cocktail party that is like, "Hey, Louis, if you were in a cocktail party, what would you say?" On that allows me to say, yes, I still make corporate enterprise America dollars, but I'm doing something for the good of the planet, right?
Absolutely.
I joke that one of my worst nightmares, and if someone wants to punish me, is gonna go and send me to work on the oil industry or in FinServe, right, where
Yeah.
you're just making money for making money.
Right.
So it's a good combination. Still be able to have a good job and doing good things for the planet.
For sure. Could you describe a little bit more about the role of enterprise architect and try to shed some light on what that field is in general for people who may have never heard about something like that?
Yeah, I'll take a probably 30-year step back to get to your answer. When I was younger and I was trying to decide what was I gonna do when I grew up, which I don't know when that happens. I'm still waiting for that day. Um, I thought that I was gonna be a geek, right? I like computers. I live in Guadalajara in Mexico at the time. Guadalajara, for context, is the size of Chicago.
Mm.
And so even 25 years ago, it was a big city. And I mention this because at the time I was in my late teens, and I know everyone in town that had a computer. That few computers existed at that time in Mexico, right? Long story short, or trying to shorten the story and get to your question, I was a bad geek. I, I get what stuff works. I understand how I said. If you ask me to code it or make it happen, sometimes I can, sometimes I don't. When I can, it doesn't look pretty. And as I was struggling in that, I went through a lot of roles on the geek side, right? I tried to be a developer and network engineer, which are the people that are in charge of, like right now, that the internet actually works, right? Making sure that everything is connected and configured properly for data to go from one place to the other. I think that in a past life, I probably wasn't that good of a person because I ended up doing several years of tech support. And worse, managing tech support is the punishment of the IT jobs. So after trying a lot of roles, I realized that actually wasn't that good of a tech person, but I could talk to people about what was happening in the tech space. And I started pivoting into, oh wait, I know how to translate what the geeks. And by the way, I wish that I could be bigger geek, right? So every time that I use a word is with the most admirable respect, and yes, those people are heroes, right? I have had a
Yes.
lot of people work for me and over the years that I wish that I could do half of they can.
Hmm.
So I was able to realize that I could translate between that and the business. Early in my career, IT got to a point where the tail was wagging the dog, and businesses were adapting to what IT was doing. So, and that's not the right thing. Is the other way around, right? The IT is a tool to support the business, and it should adapt to it.
Mm.
So an enterprise architect is a person that 1 second can be talking to a developer and having a heated discussion on how something should be built and why it will be a good idea or bad idea. Now, that person might not be able to actually code it and make it happen, but you have the understanding of the tech, of the layers, of the implications, of possible tech debt, which we can, that means I'm doing something that I'm gonna have to pay for it later because I don't have any other option. So it's a person that knows the technology to a point that knows what it could happen on a decision farther in the future, and the most important part, the implications into the business. And then 3 seconds later, be able to pivot and talk to a C-level executive and said, hey, I just talked to your IT team and they cannot do what you want to because it doesn't exist, because there are these technical limitations, or it's a bad idea because your business will suffer in this sort of way. So at a score is being able to do that translation between the tech and the business side, back and forth, do a lot of reconciliation, do a lot of marriage counseling, right? To say, hey guys, like we're trying to do the same thing. Yes, I get it. You developer, you cannot do it. Yes, Mr. or Mrs. CX person, your idea is fantastic, but that doesn't exist yet, right? So it's that translation, and there's a lot of other things that you can sprinkle on top of. If this was a nice donut with something sprinkled, will be you get into business strategy, you get into a little bit into finance, because you need to know that sometimes we dream as architects like, oh, let's do this beautiful thing, and then like, oh wait, but how are we going to pay for it? So it has a lot of little points. You end up being, sometimes people use this as a derogatory term, as a, what is called that master of none, and
Right.
I forget the saying, but you
Being
end
a
up
generalist, just really.
yes, being a generalist, and some people think that is a bad thing,
Yeah.
but you need to know enough of each one of those topics that you're going to get to at least get the respect of the person on the other side of the chair that is talking to you.
I really like that you brought up the concept of being that bridge communicator throughout the organization, because that is so important. And I can definitely see how that's critical between the IT function with people really deep in the weeds, building systems, and then the people who are actually using those systems. And the awesome thing too is that that's typically the role of sustainability as well, trying to communicate between departments, trying to communicate between people with different goals, translating the sustainability work and the sustainability concepts to try to infuse that into existing goals and roles. So yeah, it sounds like there's a lot of parallels there between sustainability work and data architecture work in general. But why would you say that the role of enterprise architect is really critical in the world of sustainability?
As part of my journey, like I mentioned before, it's been 3 years. I've been trying to understand how the domain works. What do they do? What's the ultimate? I discovered it 3 years ago, but I think that there's people that have been working in this as long as I've been in IT, right? And the interesting part for me is like, why I never knew that this existed.
Mm-hmm.
I'm mentioning this because some of the parallels that I've been able to get to, or at least trying to understand in my head, is that it looks like what sales organizations were dealing 20 years ago, where they were brute forcing their activities, and they had just discovered Excel. And they knew that they could do a lot of stuff on Excel, and next you know they clinched to that piece. And now a lot of the sustainability experts are just like, well, this is my tech, this is what I'm gonna do. And again, it's just a huge parallel to sales team 20 years ago, where they had their famous Rolodex with all their contacts, and they were logging activities on an Excel file. I mentioned in this because the importance of an enterprise architect on the sustainability side is you have to do a lot of selling to the sustainability expert, that in order for them to really do their job, they need better tools than Excel. They need better ways to automate. They need better ways to track. At some point, you have to do a business case, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of us, now that we've been in this, you're doing it because it's the right thing to do. But at the end, we do live in a society that needs to make money.
Yeah.
And it's a mainly driven capitalistic society, for good, bad, or indifferent. You like it, disagree. It is the reality. It is where we live, and you can push the edges, but at the end of the day, you have to play the game that the majority of people are playing, and we can try to shift it, but you cannot go so far out that now you're completely out of the game. Now you're in the bleachers or not even in the stadium. So still trying to answer your question is that this role starts on working with the sustainability experts on seeing the future to make their job easier. How do I make sure that what you're trying to achieve is easier for you, even from the pure mechanical perspective, right? It's just this, here's a better mousetrap. This is how it's going to be better for you. This is what you will be able to do. This is what it will unlock, et cetera, et cetera. And then something that I've been seeing, especially more in the last year, especially more on the last couple of months as some of the political climate has changed, especially in the US, is that there is a big need to monetarily explain the rest of the organization why this group of people exist and why what they doing it matters. So now more than ever, the enterprise architect in combination with a sustainability team, if they can help the sustainability team to put a story that you can go to the C level and say, hey, making our operations greener is not just good for the planet, but for bottom line, then now you have someone's attention.
Yes.
Right? If you go to the finance team and said, hey, if we do this green initiative, besides looking good with a 15-year-old crowd that eventually will be your customers, and besides being the right thing to do, it actually will be able to reduce our cost by X%. Now we're winning. Right?
And that takes data,
right.
that takes information to be able to make that case, right?
Exactly. It takes information. It takes because a lot of other areas of organizations that they're more mature, sometimes they only move by numbers, which actually at the end of the day is the right thing to do versus moving by I feel like, right? That
Yep.
is very rare that works on enterprise side. So if you can make your case with numbers, then you have a better chance to do whatever you want to. So I think that this is the huge importance of having an enterprise architect on your side to help you make that use case, right?
Absolutely. What do you think is one of the common misunderstandings that you have to clear up when you are working as an enterprise architect between the IT department and either executives or sustainability teams?
On the it's more the sustainability team. IT departments have worked with enterprise architects for a longer time. I think that still drawing that parallel to sales organizations 20 years ago, IT departments with the first architects, which I don't know, by the way, I don't know that those people knew that they were an enterprise architect, right? I think that it's not a role that someone said like, oh, we need an enterprise architect. I think that they just like appear out of necessity and started bringing friction. There is an individual, which he used to be my mentor, Joe Topeka. He was the CIO of Red Wing Shoes here in Minnesota. And he was 10 years more, 15. What was it? One of the first persons that I heard talking about of what now is an enterprise architect on remember that I mentioned before that the tail wagging the dog. So he was one of the first persons to start making the case to say, no. IT doesn't dictate what the business does. There has to be someone to referee between these two groups to do that. So eventually, 50 years later, 20 years later, IT organizations are now used to, and the really good ones will not operate if they don't have that role in place, right? Because they know the importance. There are people that they geek out and they just want to do the tech, and then they delegate that other nasty stuff to them. So I think that we're getting into similar aspects with the sustainability teams. Some of them are a little bit more mature, and they realize that they just don't know tech, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think that they have to. I don't think that they have to go and learn the technology. They need someone to help them with that. They just want a tool.
Yeah.
Right? If you need a screwdriver, you don't try to figure out how to build one. You just want to go to the store and buy a screwdriver and take the screw out. So
But sometimes you have a really complicated screw and you need like a
yes,
very
actually,
specific tool.
yes,
And
actually, I when I talk, I like to fidget, and I have several things here on my desk to fidget. And as you talk about it, I mean, this is and I don't know if eventually this will be in video or audio, but if you're only listening on audio, I have a hex wrench in my hand that is a secure bit, and it has the difference from a regular one. You probably can't see it on the camera. It has a little hole in the middle. So there are some screws that at the surface look like a regular hex screw, but these ones have a pin in the middle. So if you try to use a regular hex key, will not take it out because there's a pin that prevents the key to go inside, and this one has that. So this is a specialized tool that if you don't know that you need it, you can't take the screw.
yeah,
So I think that happens a lot with sustainability teams, right? They want to take the screw off because they need to do something, and then they went and grab a kitchen knife,
right.
and then they're frustrated because the screw will not come off.
Yeah.
So I think that the role of the enterprise architect is to say, no, hold on, kitchen knife will not do it. Actually, this is a perfect time to introduce something that I learned through the years as being a consultant and enterprise architect. And I think that if there's one thing that an enterprise architect has to do, and the good ones will do this, and the successful ones definitely will do this, is if Lewis is my sustainability counterpart, the leader of that, and Lewis comes and says, I want to do a dancing bear. Bad enterprise architects will go right away and try to secure the funding for the dancing bear. Will go and ask IT, how do we code the bear? They will just start putting all the pieces together. But in my opinion, they forgot the biggest step of all, which is,
Yeah.
what do you need a dancing bear for?
Yeah, that's great. I think I'm sure on all sides, right? Like communicating back to the sustainability team to understand what the needs are and pushing back or clarifying the vision. But then also on the IT side, if they say this isn't possible or this is how we're going to do it, it's really complicated, it's going to take this much time, like trying to figure out the best way to align both teams and their work, right?
Exactly. It's that irreverence of pushing back on the status quo. On there's nothing else for me that makes it cringier or makes me get mad. I don't usually get mad, but one of the things that definitely gets me going is when I hear someone say, "Well, we have always done it like that."
Mm-hmm.
That for me is a four-letter word, right? It's bad. So and what reminded me or triggered me is when you said that pushing back.
Yeah.
There's a quote by an Italian architect, Renzo Piano. And I didn't know about this person at all until I saw his quote. And it's an architectural quote, like actually building stuff. And I think that's how eventually the moniker or the title came to what I do, right? And this type of person. And the quote, I'm gonna read it because I can never quote it. It says, I believe the architects must lead a double life. On one hand, a taste for the exploration, for being on the edge, an unwillingness to accept things for what they appear to be, a disobedient, transgressive, and even rather insolent approach. On the other hand, a genuine and not formal gratitude towards story and nature, the two contexts in which an architecture has its roots. And again, this quote is on doing buildings. The day I still get goosebumps. It's so cheesy, but I do think that it translates to tech, and especially this right now, sustainability intersection with tech so hard, right? You have to be disobedient and say no. Why? I understand that one of the most frustrating for me thing on learning this domain has been the GSG protocol.
Yeah.
And that is a protocol and not if you're working in finance and you have a question, you go to the gap and they're black and white. The whole world follows it. They might have a slight variation because they try to get creative, but at the end of the day, you have to say, this is how we do it. The GSG is just like,
It's more open-ended It provides guidance.
Yes. So I think that if you don't do some of this pushing back, you might end up with a paradigm that is too stale or incorrect because no one else has done that question. Why are we doing this? Right? What are we trying to do? Is this it? Just talk to me about it. And some of the times I can convince the other side to move, and some of the times I convince myself, right? Again, especially knowing that in the domain of sustainability, I'm the noob. I'm the one that is learning. So sometimes I have to talk to a sustainability expert, which a lot of them are PhDs. There's some people that have dedicated their life to the topic.
Yeah.
And I need to say, hey, educate me on what are you trying to do? What's the ultimate goal?
I'm sure it's really helpful to bring that outside perspective, though, to come to it without having expectations or prior experience, and really get to the core of like, why does this matter? Or what are we trying to do here? And how do we become most efficient with that?
It has been actually a really good tool, my naivete on the topic, because I can more genuinely ask a question, right? And then people are more willing to educate me than if I were to be a fully perceived sustainability expert, because now it's Lewis against Carlos, right?
Right.
Who's wrong?
Yeah. I like
Versus
that.
if I walk in and said, I'm an expert in tech, I've been doing this for a long time, I know what you're talking about on sustainability, but I don't know your domain. You are the expert. So, and that has worked pretty well. And as we're talking about that topic of the enterprise architect, I think that for some time that is still going to be a tool that architects will be able to use. At some point, it will disappear, right? There will be, I can envision in 10 years someone being a enterprise architect with sustainability experience, and then, but that has happened in a lot of other topics, right? So it will be a good problem to have. But in the meantime, I think that all the people that are coming from tech, that they're getting into sustainability, definitely something that you can use to your advantage, right? To disarm, to make it more open the conversation.
I think that's a great perspective for people who aren't in sustainability now and wanted to get into it, maybe feeling overwhelmed or a little intimidated by trying to work on sustainability, or feeling like they need to have all of the answers or have all that experience now. But in this case, it sounds like it's actually an advantage from the perspective of you being able to ask questions genuinely, explore the topic with subject matter experts, both within a company if you're doing your work, and I think in networking too, probably if you're reaching out to somebody to say, hey, I'm an expert in this, I know a lot about this, but I want to learn more about sustainability, can you help me? And personally, I would be very open to that question.
I think that it's human nature, right? That sometimes we are more willing if someone reaches out to you and says, teach me.
Yeah.
I think that 9 out of 10 people, and this is just like a statistic in my head, will be more willing to say, sure, I'll talk to you, because we feel flattered, right? I was like, yes.
Yep.
So, but something that on that aspect, I think that right now there's a big need for the role. It doesn't exist. Very few companies have it internally.
Which role? The
enterprise architect that has some knowledge of sustainability.
Gotcha.
Right?
Yep.
I mean, there are a lot of enterprise architects. 10 years ago, the role was kind of getting formed and more formalized, and it was a little esoteric. And if you find someone, it was a little of a unicorn person. I think that right now it's a more common. It's a very aspirational role. A lot of people want to go into that, but it's a more common thing. More people. I think most people will know kind of what are you talking about if you throw the term out there. But I think that is like the reset of some of that on the sustainability domain, and it's very needed. This teams, it's fascinating to me that this sustainability teams working in Fortune 100 companies, they have the budgets. They behave as if they were the startup of the mom and pop shop 3 blocks from my house.
Yeah.
It's just
doing like full scope 3 inventories in Excel for huge companies.
Yes.
Yeah.
And no support from their central IT team, right? So I think that career wise, and I've been talking to a lot of people on that, I think that if you can, over the next probably, I don't know, and I'm just guessing 5, 10 years, if you can put in your LinkedIn that you have technology knowledge with enough sustainability domain knowledge to guide those organizations, those people, there are going to be plenty of career opportunities for those individuals. And maybe 10 years
Yeah.
again from now, when we chat again, it will be now, hopefully, like, yeah, there's a now career. You can actually go to university to be a enterprise architect with a focus on sustainability. But right now, they're my finger in the air. I think that there are just hundreds of people in the ecosystem
Yeah.
that they
That
can actually play that
enterprise
role.
architects that can speak the language of sustainability and help be that go-between, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And
That's really
and
exciting for people
versus
who are
versus if you're
interested.
talking to the enterprise general, I mean, we're talking thousands and thousands of people, right? So it's still a niche
Mhm.
job, but in magnitude, I think that right now we're nothing, right? I know it's funny. 8 years, 10 years ago, when I joined Salesforce, it was somewhat similar with enterprise architects in education. It was a point in my career when I was deep into higher ed that I knew every architect in the US.
Really?
That it was at that level, right? We were talking 2 dozen people in the whole country that had the level of, like, I know tech at that level, and I know higher education at that level to be able to do that. I think that we're heading into that direction, right? We might start hitting there. I don't know that many right now. Sustainability, I know 3 or 4.
Yeah. Well, it's an opportunity then. And
Yeah.
I think that opportunity that's emerging for a data enterprise architect who speaks the language of sustainability is partly due to that the maturing of the tech and data related space with sustainability as well. And like you described that, a lot of sustainability teams managing programs for huge companies are struggling with technology. They use Excel for a lot of stuff, which is, again, I love Excel, but limited in many ways, and are looking for those software solutions that can make their job easier. Like we touched on earlier, it's really important to make the job easier, because one of the things that I think sustainability in general is stuck on right now is just the endless loop of reporting and trying to wrangle data, trying to calculate insights. Whereas if we could get to the point of those insights being readily available, all the data being very organized, structured, and the reporting being taken care of by the technology, then we could actually focus on the important part, which is making the impacts, implementing the projects that move the needle and make progress on sustainability. So it's a really critical
And I
transition we
think
need
that
to make.
out of the couple hundred customers that I get to interact in a semi-regular basis, only a handful are ready to take that next step, right? The great majority of them right now, they're still preoccupied into making tools work. It's a baffling problem to solve. And again, I keep making these parallels to sales technology, to sales automation technology from 20 years ago. Data is I mean, and you know this, but data and sustainability is so scattered and in so many different formats, and in so incomplete that you cannot even get to, like, oh, I'm gonna start making predictions. I'm gonna start making. You can't if you don't have the data. Especially, you
Right.
mentioned this scope 3. By the way, the day that I can say, the day that you hear me say yes, I know scope 3, either I'm still BSing really really hard, or I'm about to die because I reach a pinnacle. Right? I don't think that I'm very distrustful when people say, like, I'm a scope 3 expert. I'm like, are you?
Yeah.
It's
Maybe for
that
something very specific.
Yes, out of that whole thing, every time that I think, like, okay, I got it. Category 3? What?
Yeah.
What? Right? So every
It's
time that I think
complicated.
that I have an idea of what is happening, a new curveball gets thrown in. And the fascinating piece for me is how, and I, again, this reinforces my idea right now in my head that this parallels of sales automation from the past. There. in the last 6 months, something that, and this might sound like, well, duh, dude, what do you know about that? I had no idea what FARA emissions were. Like 3 months ago, you would have asked me, I would be like, FARA, who is that? Your cousin? I had no idea. And I mentioned I interact with a couple hundred customers in a regular basis. The fascinating part is that until 3, 4 months ago, no one had brought it up. Not
Yeah.
one organization. And again, I get to interact with Fortune 100. I get to interact with multinational companies. No one had brought it up. And then the last 3 months exploded. Like all of them got together and said, like, oh, let's go Mother Carlos about FARA. But the conclusion that I do is that as things are maturing, and if you see it as that old timey nutrition pyramid, right? That you have to have certain base layers of before you move up. Right? That pattern
Right.
exists all across, right? Us as humans, if you don't have enough food, you cannot worry about other things. So I think that the parallels are the same, and you can draw the parallels to sales automation the same way. That I think that as people are like, okay, I have my scope 1 data and my scope 2 data, I'm gonna start moving into scope 3. Oh wait, what? What do you mean that I cannot calculate FARA?
Right.
So I think that it's somewhat reassuring but scary that the whole ecosystem is moving at almost kind of the same pace. And again, go back to be able to do that, you need tons of data, and to be able to get tons of data in a proper way that you can do those calculations and then do those predictions and do those whatever business cases, you do need tech. It's you can't brute force it. If you're a multinational that has 1,000 locations across the world, maybe your ERP knows what Luis, manager of the store in Mexico City, spend on electricity. Why? Because the corporate has to cut the check, right? But how many kilowatts was it?
How does it
How many-
compare to other sites? Or is it, yeah.
right? And that information sometimes never makes it back to corporate because Carlos in Naucalpan, Ciudad de Mexico, got the bill in his hand, punched it in the number on the system, and a check got cut. But the actual kilowatt hours that came on the paper bill to Carlos in Mexico City just went into the recycling bin and never make it back for you to make a calculation. So
Yeah.
so that's again the importance of this enterprise architect is like, how do we solve those problems to bring all that data into a place that's not Excel? So it does it, but it becomes very brittle, right? And if I have a genius like Lewis in my organization that has this beautiful, massive Excel sheet that has a first tab that does all the calculations, they're like, well, it does what it needs to. And like, yeah, but what are you going to do when Lewis leave? And what are you going to do when Carlos intern comes in and hits
Accidentally
B1
delete the
cell?
tab.
It deletes the cell.
Yeah.
The tab is probably better because you'll be like, oh, it's missing a tab.
Right.
But you delete the cell and then you have a spaghetti of formulas, and now like you get a lot of NAs or errors, and you're trying to chase what broke.
Yeah.
So that goes back to that. It is a good step, but at some point you have to make it scalable, right?
Yeah.
None of us have the time that we need to, so we need to take advantages of that to be able to do our job in a more efficient way and to get answers that we need to versus just worrying about the tacticality of our jobs of every day.
Yeah. The sustainability hierarchy of needs that you described, where we have to worry
Yes.
about a certain thing before another thing. I think that's pretty encouraging, actually, because we are making so much as an industry. I'm referring to the sustainability industry, making a lot of progress with technology and data and protocols and just figuring out how to get all the insights right. And what you've described makes me think that once we really get that locked down, then we'll enter this period of extreme innovation and much more progress because we have the insights driving it.
100%, right? It's I just say yes, you need that data, right? Something that a lot of some other discussion that has been happening and intersects with the enterprise architect sustainability AI, right? That the I love to hate it. It's fascinating to me, the topic. I don't think that it's going away. I think that it's going to make the sustainability people job a lot harder into justifying why do we need this monster that eats resources like nobody's business. at the same time, right now, I mean, I'm some days I get a little ashamed, but some days it's like my job has been augmented by being able to ask questions to, I joke and call it the robot. And I have these conversations with a robot that otherwise will be very hard, especially trying to learn the domain, right? I asked the robot, hey, explain this to me as if I was a 12-year-old. And because the first couple of times that I asked, the stupid things start giving me PhD levels of content that I'm like, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
So, but the point of that is tying it back to this pyramid. Once that we have that data, and because the data is massive, right? I had a customer that they are a telco, and they were capturing because they had a technology internally. They have IoT devices on each one of their vehicles, on their whole fleet, thousands and thousands of vehicles. They have an IoT device. And if Carlos goes to the gas station and as soon as you plug in the pump into it, the IoT device detects, it knows how many volume units you put of fuel into the device. And the moment that you take it out, it records the number and it goes and creates a record. It says, yes, Carlos just put 10 gallons of gasoline on this vehicle. Awesome. And now we have all this data, millions of rows a month not being analyzed. So I mentioned that because it goes back to this idea of this pyramid of necessities, right? So they have already solved the majority of his necessities of collecting data. And now the next one arises, which is like, what do I do with all this data? Where are the insights? How do we get to it? And we go back to the what we were talking the whole day of why an enterprise architect is important on sustainability.
Yeah.
Because that person will say, okay, well, also tying it to what I told you, what are you trying to do? Right?
Do you need that level of detail? Yeah.
Do you need that level of detail? Maybe we save some money and some cycles on some data center if we don't collect that data. Or okay, fine, you need that data. Now what? Right? To go back to again, ask those questions. What are you trying to do? Don't make me an order taker and a solutioner. Partner with me and let's think about strategize on how solving this layer of the necessity is going to unlock the next one.
Right.
And I think that as I'm talking, I'm really liking this idea of this pyramid of necessities for sustainability. There's always going to be this might be a infinite pyramid, right? That it has no end. There's always going to be a next challenge in front.
But you're always building on a foundation that you're
always building a foundation, and maybe the one of the biggest values that an architect can bring to a sustainability expert or organization is to try to see one or two layers above.
Yes.
Right? Because if I'm only seeing the next one, that has happened. That has happened to me. And we mentioned tech debt. That is probably a good definition of tech debt. If you and I are solutioning something and we just solution for the next layer of problem, inadvertently we might create all this huge tech debt, right? Yep. Me now being part of the product team, it has allowed me to have a longer vision, trying to see where the product is going in a year. And if Lewis is my client and he's asking me to solution the next one, and I convince you to give me the why, now my job is to grab your immediate need, right? The next need on the pyramid, compare it to the roadmap. Are we gonna solve this with the product? Are you okay building this? And help you make the decision. Do you need it today? Do you need it in 6 months? Because I might solve it for you in 6 months. So, or if you say, no, I need it now because I have a reporting deadline due, right? Either internal or external or whatever. I need the solution now. Well, my biggest job on that is how do I make you build this that we throw away the minimum possible?
Right.
At the end of the day, we end up throwing away tech solutions. That's the nature of the beast. But I think that in correlation with this pyramid of necessities and what the architect does is just to foresee which one are the next one after we solve this one, maybe two above, and what are the implications of the tech making a decision A or B, right? At the end of the day, if the solution is not ready available and we're going to do a famous workaround, how expensive and how much we're going to waste of this workaround. If we can align it to something that's going to happen 2 steps from now, it's a little better.
Yeah. I really like this concept we're building. And we've talked a lot about how the enterprise architect supports organizations with sustainability. I want to, as we wrap up the episode here, get pretty actionable and talk about a career path. If you were starting from scratch and trying to get into your role now, what steps would you take? How would you design like a learning path, or what would you do to get to where you are now? Again, bonus points if it's specifically related to an enterprise architect with sustainability.
This question has been asked in the enterprise architect as general, right? There are a lot of, I can't believe I'm so old now. I can't believe that there are a lot of kids asking me this. How do I become an architect? For a lot of reasons. So some of them are coming, I mean, they might be valid for them. It might be different for me, but some of them are coming because, whoa, dude, there's money there, right?
Yeah.
Architects make a lot of money. How do I become one? I thought, well, if you're trying to become an architect because you're going to make money, might be the wrong decision. But trying to, again, tied to this concept of layers of like, you need to do this before you do that. You need to recognize that you have that ability to do translation between tech and corporate, period. I do not know a good architect that cannot do that. I know very, very skilled technologists, like I mentioned before, magnitude better than me, can't talk to the business. So you can be an architect, period. In my strong opinion, you need to be able to do that. So if we are trying to give advice to early 20s, I just graduated and I want trying to figure out what do I do when I grow up, and this enterprise architect with focus on sustainability sounds cool because I'm saving the planet, because I'm gonna make money, because. I think that you can start learning both of those things, right? First, do the self-assessment. Can I do the job? And the job is, can I be a translator? Do I understand enough tech? Do I understand enough business? Do I understand enough about sustainability?
I think there what you just touched on is like the how, like the what is you need to be able to translate tech to different functions. The how is diving enough into each of them that you have a foundation, like diving enough into tech that you understand the challenges and the language, diving enough into business then, which may be counterintuitive if you love tech, you love sustainability, but diving into the business world enough that you understand the business drivers, the financial talk, all that, so that you can then talk between the two, right?
And a deeper advice than that, I love as I get, I'm not gonna keep calling myself old. As I get more experience, and I get opportunity to coach and mentor people early in their careers, there's nothing wrong with pivoting. Within tech, I have pivoted several times during my career. I didn't get here with a straight line, right? So you asked me, how do you become an enterprise architect? Which is that there's not a straight line. It's a jagged line at best. And there might be some exit ramps that sometimes people should take. And there's nothing wrong with it. There's no shame on it. So if right now the conversation is how to become this person, but I think that we need to make a service on the conversation that we touched these 3 areas, right? The tech, the business, and the sustainability. And if you're a human that is like, oh my God, I love the sustainability topic, I want to go deeper and deeper and deeper. And this other 2, I get it, but they cause me a headache, they give me stomach ache, I drag. Take the exit ramp.
Yeah.
Become a sustainability expert. There's, not because you had this idea early in your career that you wanted to be this. Again, it takes a very weird mix of skills, and Excel is that part. So I think that the probably biggest advice that I have into how to become one is to keep doing that self-assessment, right? Do I like those 3 topics enough to stay interested, to be able to carry a conversation, to be able not to get eyes roll from a call with a sustainability expert, right? That at least entertain what you're saying.
Yeah.
And the same with my best developers are the ones that only roll their eyes once in a conversation, right? They're like, "Ugh." And then the rest are like, okay, I guess. And it has been a pattern that I think that I talk to each one of these groups, and the most challenging has been definitely the sustainability expert. That if I get a I guess or sure, like a semi-convinced, not an enthusiastic, let's do that. Actually, when the enthusiastic one is like, shit, what just happened?
Yeah.
So going back to how do you become one? Keep doing that self-assessment, right? Diving off on each one of the topics that you understand, and you can carry a conversation with an expert, but you don't have, it's impossible. You cannot be an expert on the three topics. They're too deep to go into it. Go back to this beautiful quote that I love, right? You have to be a little disobedient. The client asks you to do something, maybe you try to how not to do it, right? You have to be aggressive and then sometimes a little insolent and like, I'm gonna push back, and just realize when people are getting mad just to take a step back. So I don't have a 30-second soundbite that I can give you. If I had, I will write a book and maybe retire out of the proceeds of the book. So I have ideas on how you turn one, but I don't have this is the recipe, right? Again,
Right.
I'll mention the jagged line. My knowledge is, or my learnings on this is a jagged line, they're exit ramps. Sometimes, most of the time, you will, if you see an exit ramp that looks appealing, it's probably better to take it than trying to keep forcing yourself on the path. And now if you find at some point where you can carry this conversation on everyone and you feel that you don't know any of the topics, I think that now you have become an architect.
There you go.
Because the last part that I know is, and I tell this to my kids, I tell this to everyone, the older that I get, the more realize that I don't know anything. I don't know anything.
Oh, I'm sure that's not the case. But the knowledge across topic areas, I think, is really key. That we've really come back to that over and over, that you don't need to be an expert in all of the topics that you're communicating between, but you need to be dangerous in each of them. And that's really the core thread.
Exactly.
That's fantastic. Well, this has been awesome, Carlos. I appreciate your time today. Thank you so much for sharing your insights with us. Is there anything you'd like to leave us with?
Oh, no. I could keep talking. I tell a lot. My wife has heard me say this, my kids, some of my clients. The most beautiful sound in the whole world is the sound of my own voice. So we could keep talking for hours. Thank you for having me. This was a lot of fun to have this conversation.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Carlos. Have a good day.
Thank you.